Actually, it's going to be Good afternoon, class. My name is Mrs. Coddington, and I will be teaching today's lesson, which is about determining boundary violations in a therapeutic relationship using the American Counseling Association's Code of Ethics. Okay. So Annie has been seeing her therapist, Dr. Kennedy, for 3 years due to relationship problems. One day, Annie is describing her relationship with her new boyfriend when Dr. Kennedy realizes that Annie is describing her son. As counselors, what do we do in that situation? Well, that's kind of what we're going to talk about and go through, is how to navigate these kinds of situations. All right, so learning outcomes, what we're going to learn and do today. The first one is infer what constitutes a boundary violation in a therapeutic relationship. Evaluate case vignettes to determine if a boundary violation has occurred, and construct an action plan if it has been determined that a boundary violation has occurred. So those are the things that we'll be doing today. All right, so a little background. The purpose of ethical codes are to protect the client. Our motto as counselors in our profession is do no harm. So everything that we do is with the client's well-being in mind first. But they also protect the clinician as well. So if we follow the code of ethics, the likelihood of a lawsuit is less than it would be if we didn't follow those. Serve as a guide to inform ethical practice. So if there's ever an issue, you look at first and foremost at the code of ethics to see as a guide what we should do. And it helps us also construct a course of action. What do we do once a boundary violation has been determined? So these are the big no-nos, what we do not do as counselors. So we do not counsel anybody we've ever had a sexual or romantic relationship with. That's past, present, and I would say future, but we have no way of determining that. But we don't. Those are big no-nos. So even previous or romantic sexual relationships, from 10 years ago, 20, it does not matter. We cannot be unbiased in those situations, and we can probably do more harm than good. And have sexual or romantic relationships with previous clients. So the Code of Ethics does say that if after 5 years after the counseling relationship has been terminated, after the last therapeutic contact, you can initiate a relationship with a client, but you have to document if that it will do no harm, that there's no power difference in the therapeutic, well, it's not a therapeutic relationship, it's a relationship. Generally, it's just not a good idea. Friends and family members, we don't counsel them. It's just a big no-no, make referrals. And personal virtual relationships with current clients. So that includes Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram. We just don't have those relationships virtually with our clients. So managing and maintaining boundaries. Previous relationships. So that means anybody that we've had, maybe somebody that we know from church, somebody that we know from work, or previous jobs, things like that. Even though we're not friends, but they're more of a casual acquaintance, we don't counsel them. Extending counseling boundaries. So what that means is you have a client, you've been seeing them for a while, and you get invited to their wedding or their graduation. Those are not necessarily no-nos, but we do have to keep in mind what we need to do to make sure it doesn't do any harm to the client. So maybe even talking to the client, if you do agree to go, hey, if somebody asks how I know you, what do I tell them? Because that can also be harmful to the client as well. But not necessarily a bad thing. Like, you want to go to their graduations and celebrate their successes if it won't cause harm. Documenting boundary extensions. So those are really important. So same thing that we talked about before. If you extend those boundary violations, you have to document your reason for going, your reasoning behind going, that you don't expect it to do harm to the client, things like that. So role changes in the professional relationship. So what that discusses is, say you're seeing someone for individual therapy, and they're like, well, I want to do family therapy now. Well, that can get kind of tricky, especially if you've been seeing somebody for a while, because you know all their history, you have a relationship with them, but you don't have a relationship with these new people or person that's coming into the relationship. What do you say? What do you don't say? Things like that. Sometimes it's just better to refer them. Keep the client for one-on-one counseling and then refer them. Refer the family to somebody else that you trust will do a good job. And non-professional interactions or relationships. So that doesn't necessarily mean romantic or sexual relationships with clients, but that could just be a friendship with a client, but we just don't do those. Just good practice to maintain those boundaries. All right, so remember Annie from the beginning. So we're going to determine if a boundary violation has occurred, okay? So based on what we know now. Annie has been seeing her therapist, Dr. Kennedy, for 3 years due to relationship problems. One day, Annie is describing her relationship with a new boyfriend when Dr. Kennedy realizes that Annie is describing her son. Has a boundary violation occurred?
I would think she can verify.
How would she do that?
I would ask.
Ask the client? Yeah. So maybe not yet, but maybe, because she has different avenues that she could approach this. And if she decided to do nothing, then maybe that would be a boundary violation.
Right.
So it's kind of tricky, and we'll talk about that more later. But yeah, so not yet, but it has the potential. Does anybody have anything else you'd like to add? Just that we agree she should talk to somebody about it? Yeah, okay. All right, so what we're going to do, you guys are in 2 groups. You're going to partner up, and you each have papers in front of you right here. Actually, all these papers can be flipped over. Each of you have different case vignettes. And you're going to read them and go over and determine if a boundary violation has occurred, and talk about that with your partner, and then we'll have a little group discussion after that.
Can we write on these?
If you want to, yeah. And I forgot to mention that this paper right here is, the top page is exactly what we just talked about if you need to look at that for reference.
Is it within boundaries?
You guys can talk to each other and start talking.
We both say more documents.
Yeah, you guys, each table has the same.
So I'll just say, yeah, it is a violation.
But at the same time, we address it, or say, hey, this is concern. She agreed that if there was an issue for therapy purposes, she would go to someone else. So I don't think based off of the black and white of it, you're right, she was a previous, but plumbing fluid. But, you know, like I said, maybe a gray area because on the other time, more option and the fact that we talked to her about the, you know, paying yourself some stuff.
Referring her out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have about 2 more minutes and then we'll get into our discussions.
Our program is okay, so this is my point. Whatever, 5 years, no, 3 years.
Even if you prison her home.
Yeah. That's pretty much, you know, my point. You know, see that.
About 1 more minute.
It'll be 5 years.
Is everyone about finished with their discussion between the group? Okay, so we'll just get started. Could one of you two please read your, because you guys have different cases, so read your case out loud and tell us if there was a boundary violation and why you think so.
Was it Crespo? Dr. Crespo has been working with the client Steve for the last 3 months on rebuilding his life and reintegrating into society after having spent 6 years in prison for sex offenses. For the last month, Dr. Crespo has been working on the issues of Steve frequently stealing money from his girlfriend's wallet for drinks with his friends. Steve lies to his girlfriend about his past and difficulties holding down a job. Last weekend, Dr. Crespo's sister organized a party and invited Dr. Crespo, stating that she really wanted him to meet her new boyfriend, whom she had been going out with for the last 3 months, and now they are contemplating marriage. Upon arrival at the party, Dr. Crespo was surprised when his sister's new boyfriend was none other than Steve.
So has a boundary violation occurred?
Not necessarily.
Not yet. It depends on the course of action he decides to take, right? Okay. So maybe, but not yet. All right. Who would like to move this group?
Dr. Jones is a counselor working in the private outpatient clinic. The young lady, Sarah, was referred to him for relationship issues. After working with Dr. Jones for 3 months, Sarah thinks that her problems are over, and after discussing this with Dr. Jones, they both agreed to end therapy. 3 years later, Sarah and Dr. Jones coincidentally met again at a get-together party. They both had a lengthy discussion, and at the end of the day, they exchanged addresses, and Sarah asked Dr. Jones if they can meet again. Dr. Jones responded and quickly pointed out that he would have loved to take her out, but due to their past professional contact, he would not be able to do so because such a relationship would affect any future professional consultation Sarah might need from him. Sarah agreed with him and suggested that if there is a need for any future consultation, she would not mind him referring her to a professional colleague. Dr. Jones conceded and agreed to go out with Sarah. According to the ACA Code of Ethics, it's a minimum of 5 years, so that is a violation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, that is definitely a boundary violation.
Now, if waited another 2 years and then talked about it,
Documented
and
it.
documented it, then it would be a violation. Or they can avoid the violation, I guess.
Correct, good job. So, once we have determined when, or if a boundary violation has occurred, what do we do? So that's where we look at the ACA Code of Ethics again. So in constructing an action plan. So the first step is we identify what the problem is. And each of those cases are very different. There's different problems there. Apply the Code of Ethics. Determine the nature and dimensions of the dilemma. There's a lot of moving pieces in this and a lot of different courses of action that can be taken, and all of those things need to be taken into consideration. Generate potential courses of action. There's at least two that we can think of for each, right? If not more. Consider consequences of each course of action for all parties involved, specifically the client, what's best for them, because our motto is do no harm. And evaluate the selected course of action. So you choose one. Sometimes they're both maybe not the greatest plans, but you choose one, right? Or not the best. They're especially the sticky situations, but you choose it and then implement it. So you have those discussions with your clients. So for Annie, she's been seeing her therapist for 3 years, and then the therapist, Dr. Kennedy, thinks it's her son, right? So according to this, how do we construct an action plan for Annie? She could do nothing, right? We talked about that. Dr. Kennedy could very well choose to just not do anything, pretend that she doesn't know what she does, right? But I think that would be an ethical violation. Why do you think that would be an ethical violation?
Because it's a minor and,
No, her adult son.
yeah. Okay.
It's consensual adult relationship.
Okay,
That's where it gets a little murky. What were you going to say?
Maybe it's things that are
depending on the
not-
state.
Yeah, true.
Well,
Right.
every state, so that would be one, look at the ethical codes, but yes, every therapist needs to know the local laws and that, and some states might have laws against that. What else? What else do you think?
I mean, the whole point is to do no harm, and if you realize she's describing her son, pursuing a relationship with her son, I mean, you would probably want to refer her to somebody to help with that, because at the end of the day, that's still her son, so there's going to be, I mean, if they break up and it's kind of messy, and you like puts it on Facebook or something.
It's going to be biased,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. What if she pretends to do, or does nothing, and they get married, and she doesn't disclose to her client that, yeah, so I think we're all in agreement that she definitely needs to disclose this to her client and have that conversation. Where it gets a little tricky too is Annie's been seeing Dr. Kennedy for 3 years. That's a very long relationship, and I bet you I would venture to guess that there's a lot of trust there, and it would also be a little hard to say goodbye. But in this case, I think it's definitely necessary to refer her, and that's the conversation to have with her is, hey, I have somebody in mind for you. They're a great clinician, and just be very mindful of here's why, maybe even point to the code of ethics or local laws depending on what they say, and kind of say, oh, it's out of my hands because it's this, and yeah, definitely. So you guys,
The first thing though is to actually identify that it is her.
so how do you go about doing that?
She would have to confront her.
Confront
Annie.
Annie.
Yeah, and say, hey, so I'm getting the vibe that this person that you're in a relationship with is your son. Is that the case? If that's the case, we need
Dr. Kennedy's son.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That was clear.
No,
Okay.
that wasn't, okay.
Okay.
You thought it
Oh,
was
sorry.
Annie's son.
Yeah.
No, Dr.
That's why I'm like,
whoa.
Okay, so that was maybe, my bad.
I got it.
You got it?
I got it.
Okay.
Share with the group.
So the boys didn't get it. That's interesting.
All right then.
No, this wasn't an incest case. It was adult son, mutual,
That's
like
okay.
everything's
Looking at that all
legal,
weird when I was like-
consensual, yeah. No, but it's tricky because of it was the therapist's son.
Oh, okay.
The
Well,
girl was
then,
dating.
yeah, absolutely then, yeah.
Yeah. So how would you confirm that there was a relationship like that then?
But you'd still, I mean, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you'd ask and be like, hey, because you're dating my son, these are the boundaries. I can't, ethically I can't, because you come to me and say something, personal about my son, I can't be objective at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Do you talk to your son?
I don't think you
Why
can.
not? You're shaking your head no, why not?
No, because then that would be giving away information that you can't get out.
Confidentiality and
Yeah, but-
Without violating all
okay.
these
Absolutely. So yeah, big no-no. Now, if Annie wants to talk to her boyfriend and say, hey, guess what? Your mom's my therapist. Or your mom's my therapist. That's on her, but we can't go and break confidentiality about that. That's a big no-no.
That's kind of complicated, especially if it's your family member.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think maybe Dr. Kennedy should do? Well, one thing that she can do is seek supervision.
Yeah.
Talk to another counselor and say, hey, this is what's going on. Help me out with this. Let's look at the code of ethics. Let's brainstorm a good plan to, because like you said, it's tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to another group activity. So we're going to do exactly what we just did with Annie's case,
Mm-hmm.
with your cases that you have on your table. So brainstorm, come up with different action plans, come up with the best action plan, and then we'll discuss it as a group. Then I'm going to put that up so you can look and see the steps. We have about 8 minutes.
Yeah, it is. I don't think you should see any pictures. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
2 more years.
And I'll see the other.
Or be like, if I bump into you in 2 more years, we'll see.
Yeah.
Not even say the number, just be like, hey, you never know. I don't know.
But I think she definitely refer her after that.
So you were saying that he shouldn't have done it, but he did. So how does he go from there? Like, oops, I made a mistake. Like, how does he move on from there, do you think?
Documents it. And puts everything. Once the problem is identified, the violator, you have to, ethically you have to violate it. Otherwise you're risking your own.
He's risking a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Sure. Definitely. And I forgot to mention too, I'm sorry, that the last 2 pages, well, it starts on the bottom corner, but so basically the last page has the section on knowing local laws and different things, so to maybe help use as a guide in your discussions. We'll have about 2 more minutes of discussion amongst yourselves, and then we'll go into the group discussion.
Yeah, maybe go before they get out. I don't know, Claire.
What do you guys
Very
think?
Yeah.
clear-cut and right, so.
Definitely. Oh, definitely. We'll talk about that more, but yeah, it's kind of clear. Yeah. That gets a little tricky, doesn't it? We'll talk about that more in the group discussion, because I think that's good for the other one. Yeah. About 1 more minute. That's great. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll start with you guys this time, since we started with them on the last exercise. So,
Okay.
what'd you come up with?
As far as, like I said, it's clear cut. He has to, you know, he made a mistake. Dr. Jones, conceded and agreed to go out with her, even though it was a violation of the 5-year.
It was definitely a violation of the ethics.
Yeah, so, at that point, I think that he has to, I guess, document, he has to end the relationship. You know, regardless if he wants to or not. I mean, otherwise he opens himself up, or if he works for an agency or whatever organization that he works for, he opens them up for any kind of lawsuit or.
He loses license.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was telling her, it's pretty clear cut, you know, you violated it, you need to stop it, you can't, you know, there is no gray area in that, so.
No, not one.
so.
Good job. Good job. How about you guys? Would you?
But he's gonna have to refer Steve to someone else because what's going on with the fact that he's dating his sister.
Does he talk to the sister?
He can't. Talk
He
to his
can't,
sister.
right? No. No, but
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's gonna be asking him. I mean, because it's his sister. She's gonna ask. I mean, the whole reason why she invited him to the party anyway was to meet her boyfriend. So he's gonna be having to dodge that for a while.
how do you do
No.
that? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna ask, what if the sister asks,
What if the sister asks what?
brother, you know, are you seeing my, he can't,
It's protected information.
that's
So-
kind of a hard one to dodge, though.
Like the only thing, I mean, Steve could probably tell her, you know, hey, I didn't realize that was your brother, and you know, he's my counselor. But then that might.
But then
But
that's
then,
up to
yeah,
Steve, and then if you think about it, go ahead.
Steve commented that the same time this is the guy who, while seeing her brother, had told his girlfriend about his past, that he was in prison for 6 years for some sex offense. So him probably admitting to your brother's my counselor, and so he's just kind of sitting there.
It might not. He could also be like, oh no, I need to talk to my counselor about, obviously a conversation needs to be had. And you're right, he does need to be referred. This whole time, like, he's been talking about stealing money from his girlfriend's purse and things. So he's been working with, even though he didn't know it was his sister, been working on him with these things. It just seems that Steve hasn't made that choice, so he probably wouldn't. But definitely refer, and that's for him and the new therapist to work on. And we keep quiet. Even though it's difficult, right? Yeah, that's a hard one. That's a really hard one. And there's a lot of different routes you could take, but the most ethical way would be you can't say anything over. Yeah, definitely. So I think you guys did a really great job on that. Just looking, and you kind of have a feel for what to do in some of these situations. You ask for supervision. Look at the ethical codes, ask for supervision, talk about it. Brainstorm, think of every possible course of action that can be taken, and then choose the best one out of those. Sometimes there are no perfect, ideal situations, and you just pick the best one that does the least harm to the client, because first and foremost, it's do no harm. Right. So just a summary of what we talked about and learned today. So we learned what constitutes a boundary violation in a therapeutic relationship. Does everybody agree that we accomplished that today? Okay. Evaluate case vignettes to determine if a boundary violation has occurred. Did we accomplish that today? And then construct an action plan if it has been determined that a boundary violation has occurred. Did we do that today? Awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming to class today.
Thank you.